morning, Pitch Drive Chronicles. I am Uncle Tess. I am here with Rob and Donald, and joining us is our special guest, Julian. Julian, how's everything been? What's new with you?
It's been good, just the grind of the baseball season. I'm happy to see the Yankees are playing better. A lot of time in Somerset, what we mentioned, is off the set. And the prospects are looking good too. Seeing some guys up there now, and I know we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, we've been trying to meet up, get you on for a while. We've been, texting back and forth, pretty much all season. We've been trying to keep in touch, but I'm glad that you finally were able to get some of your time there. One of the things that I think is the most impressive is the fact that the Yankees are actually willing to put a little trust in some of these prospects, mainly Anthony Volpe. The big question to start the season was, is he going to start opening day? From what you've seen from him in the minor leagues in the last couple of seasons to throughout his spring, did you feel like there was a no doubt with Anthony Volpe, or was there still some question marks?
I thought in the beginning it was questionable because I didn't really trust that they were going to add him to the roster and do the right thing and not try to manipulate the service time, because that's been a big problem in the past. I think the noise became too big to ignore after the first few weeks. It kind of just would have been a bad look if they didn't send him up, because they said it was an open competition. He had the right to win the job, and he showed that he won it during the spring. So I think that as the time went on, it started to feel like more of a sure thing.
Yeah, I just thought it really was a no-brainer decision, just the way that he was tearing it up, and I think he's been playing fine. He's I don't think there's are many holes in his game. I think that's one of the things we're seeing. The batting average might not be there, but I think his defense is cleaning up. He's a dominant threat on the bases, and that's something that the Yankees have been lacking, is the base running.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm pretty happy with the season he's put together so far, and I think most of us look past batting average at this point anyway. I mean, if anything, you want to see the OPS get a little bit higher, but I'm sure it will over time. And the stolen bases is huge. The Yankees haven't had that in ages, and it has impacted a lot of games with his legs already. So he's getting it done. I think he's just going to continue to get better. I think the bat's going to come around. You're going to want to see some strikeouts get cut out too, because he has struck out a lot this season, but that's to be expected as he's learning MLB pitching.
Yeah, the MLB pitching from the minor leagues to the major leagues is always that's the adjustment that sometimes can be the biggest pain in the ass. But I think he's going to, as the season develops, I think that's going to clean up a lot more. I can see him as one of those players that does have a low strikeout percentage.
Yeah, I think typically speaking, I definitely expect a lower one over his turn, over the time the season ends, in general in his career. He wasn't a high strikeout guy in the minors. His average wasn't the highest though either. He wasn't a 300 hitter last year. People need to realize that too. But his power was there. OPS is right around 800. But I think it's gonna get better too, and I can't wait to see how he does for the rest of the year.
Yeah, before Rob and Donald jump into the discussion, I just want to let everybody know, just share, comment, subscribe. If you have a question about a prospect or one of the kids for Julian, throw his name into the comment section. We will get to him and share this out. Let's get this discussion building. So, Rob, is there a prospect that you have had an eye on that you really want to see be brought up at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about the bats, but the guy I've been watching, because a lot of our pitching depth was let go last year in trades, Will Warren has really rose up significantly over the last couple of years from a relative, I guess you can say, nobody to now he's one of our top pitching prospects. Do you think there's any shot, because I would like to see it, is there any shot he makes the major league roster this year, makes a couple of starts maybe in September or something like that?
Yeah, why not? I mean, he's going through the system really quick. His first start in AAA was really good. With the way these injuries have been going, I think you can argue he's a better option than Johnny Brito and Clark Schmidt later in the year, based off what we've seen off them. Domingo Germán has to deal with a sticky situation. You never know what's going to quite happen with him. Rodon's injury history and Severino's injury history is really worrisome. And when is Rodon even going to actually pitch? That remains to be seen. So I think you could see a Warren call up in like August or July, August or September, maybe. Depending how things look, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, Donald.
What kind of role could the Yankees find for Wells? Because he's obviously not going to be as good a catcher as they have at Trevino, but the guy's got a legit major league bat already. He's tearing it up. I remember watching him in Somerset. I thought, yeah, he has a great swing, power swing, and a major league ready swing. How could they utilize him in the immediacy and in the short term and medium term? Is there a way that they can utilize him?
It's an interesting question. I think that's a big question a lot of people have. And like, I've been trying to think about what they can do. It seems that they're determined to have him catch. So a lot of people are trying to see if there's a window for him to play first or the outfield, but it seems like they still want to stick with catching. If anything happens, I'll let everyone know if they start experimenting with positional switches. So far, not yet. Apparently, they want to see him catch back-to-back days still because he's been DH and catching a little bit on and off, probably because like the injury situation in Somerset has a bunch of catchers. I think he should get called up to AAA very soon, though. I think he's showing he doesn't need to be in AA anymore. Just the question of the defense. And to be all the way up later in the year, I mean, if you look on the pipeline, they expect him to be called up this year. That's his expectation timeline. But is the defense going to match like the offense? No, it isn't. But I think he can hit this year. It's just a question of what they want to do. I'm not entirely sure right now what's going to happen with him.
Is his defense further along than Gary Sanchez was when he was called up?
I mean, it depends, honestly, how you look. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know where Gary's defense was back then. I just know that he has some bad times with the pass balls. And people are saying that maybe it could be on par. I think his arm is not as good as Sanchez's arm was.
Right.
I saw him like one hop a ball the other day, although his numbers did improve defensively last year. Like everything went up like doubly, basically, in a positive way. He cut down pass balls, caught more runners stealing. I just don't know if there's a window for him to catch this year, really, in the majors. That's the problem. I mean, he can definitely swing in the majors, but are they going to actually like let him play over Trevino? I mean, Trevino hasn't been hitting well, but we know what his defense is.
So I guess the only room would be a DH then, basically.
Yeah, which is a clog position with Stan and everything else. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, let's say Trevino and Higgy just fall off a cliff and they just can't hit anything and the offense needs a spark. Maybe they try it.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen like with Higgy, he's dropped off a bit. Not that he was a prolific hitter, but we have seen a decline this year, aside from a couple of highlights. But when you get, a guy that's called up like Roydvet, how do you think that if Roydvet continues to go on a hot streak, and they decide that, all right, we're just going to go with the tandem of, Roydvet and Trevino, how do you feel that? Do you think that would be a good thing for Wells to just have a more time down in the minor leagues to just really focus on defense since we know the bat's there?
I mean, that's an interesting question too. Roydvet to me is like, apparently it's still going to be like Higgy and Trevino whenever Trevino's healthy, and it's supposed to be a short stay in the IL for Trevino. Yeah. It was cool to see Roydvet do some things after all the hype of him not being able to play and all the jokes and everything. But yes, he's real, and he had a really good game over the weekend. So that's another problem for Wells too, because in theory, Roydvet's ahead of Wells because he's been in AAA. Now he's been called up to the majors. So if you look at it that way, Wells is like fourth in line.
Yeah. We have this question from Mike Mazza in the chat for you, and he wants to hear your take on Spencer Jones.
I think Jones is a beast. I think he's a stud. I think he's going to be in Somerset at some point, maybe the next month or so. I know he's hit a little cold stretch. There's some concern about his swing being a little too long at times. You want to see some Ks get cut down out of his game, but he does everything well. The speed he has for his size is just off the charts, and he just hits the ball so hard. And He's a good hitter, obviously, and his defense is really good too. We could even steal a few bases. He's really a well-rounded player. Someone drops like a Josh Hamilton comp on him. I thought that was an interesting one instead of Aaron Judge, because I think I've realized the Judge comparison's a little bit off. Like it's probably also righty compared to lefty. Jones is a little bit faster.
Another prospect that always that had the big comparison was Dominguez. Where do you see his development so far?
I think Jason's been better than the average wins a gate. His swing decisions have been really good. You want to see that average get a little bit higher, obviously. His OPS was over 800 at one point still, despite the low average. Now it's like in the mid-sevens, I think. He had a tough weekend. But I think Jason will get his call to AAA. I know some people think he might make it all the way up. Yankees have a huge hole in left field. That's no secret. I don't want to see his development rush just to fix the hole. Like, I want to make sure he's fully ready by the time he gets up there. Maybe he gets a September call, and maybe he even gets his way on the playoff roster somehow. That would be something really exciting.
I mean, I think if he's end up on a playoff roster, I think something went wrong. Well, as much as I would like for him, that means that we lost a key piece. That we're trying.
Yeah, you might be right, and you can't rule that out, obviously, with the injury history of the teams. And although I don't know, because let's say you DH there and you put Dominguez in left field, for instance, and you have Bader in center and Judge in right.
Yeah. Rob, is there anybody else you were curious about?
I know that obviously the hype is around Dominguez and with Jones, but Everson Pereira doesn't seem to get talked about enough. He's hitting, he plays good defense, and I just don't know if there's a role for him on the team in the future because they seem dead set on Dominguez being the guy, whether it's in center or left field. We know Jones is coming up faster than a lot of prospects do. We have Judge locked up forever. And there's also the possibility with the way Bader's playing, they might even look to extend him. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but do you think Pereira at this point might just be a trade chip because we have a lot of bats in our system, or do they try to find a spot for him somehow in this outfield alignment?
Well, you could definitely argue he's ahead of Dominguez at this point based on what he's done in the minors, and he is playing a little bit better. He's getting really hot at Somerset lately. He's had a bunch of multi-hit games. His numbers are looking really good after a lackluster start. I think you can maybe move him to AAA. Maybe when you call up Jones to AA, you put Pereira in AAA. Maybe that's how they'll end up moving the order in the ladder. But I can see a window for where he gets traded. He's on the 40-man roster, which means he could technically be called up. But does he have a full-time role in the future? No, I don't think he really does, honestly. And it kind of sucks. It's kind of a surplus of outfielders. I could see him being moved for a piece at the deadline, or maybe next or over the offseason or something.
Donald, before we start getting it, I want to get into the major league teams and what your expectations are and what you're seeing. But is there anybody, Donald, that you think we've forgotten to bring up from the minor leagues to get a perspective on?
100%. What about my main man, Oswald Peraza? That's the big question, man. Like, can they find a way to make him make him and Volpe the middle infield of the future? I mean, I love Peraza. I love his defense. I think he's actually a better shortstop than Volpe, and there's no disrespect to Volpe because Volpe is excellent there too. But I think Peraza is just a step ahead of him defensively with his glove. Obviously, the offense is the bigger issue, but he had such a really good time there last year with the big team, batting over 300, good OPS. Like, he showed us everything that you could possibly want. Why do the Yankees not really trust him, and why do the Yankees not really have a role for him right now?
That's a really complicated question. I got to get into this on my pod too at some point. I've been meaning to, but the thing is, like, it's really complicated because you have Gleyber Torres still. Is Gleyber going to be here long term? And then you have him at second base only. He can't do any other positions really. Volpe's now cemented at shortstop. You could say Peraza is better on defense. I thought the same thing as well, honestly, at short. The bad I don't think is bad. Is the major league quality. We don't really know. I mean, we saw a small sample size last year that was good. This year it hasn't been as good, but it hasn't really been a lot of at bats. The thing we know is that he doesn't need to be in AAA. if he was on almost any other team, he'd probably be in the majors right now. So it's just he's in a tough spot. Are they going to move on from him and lock up Gleyber? Are they just trying to keep him fresh in case they end up moving Torres? Like, I want him to be up there too, but I don't know like how they could do it right now based on how the roster looks. Unless you get him at third, but then there's DJ.
I think the only room is second base.
Probably.
That's the big thing. Like, I think he can adjust there absolutely fine. But then what do you do with Gleyber Torres? I could see Gleyber Torres maybe DHing while Stanton plays left field, if that was the case, if they did force him in the second base. But it really begs the question as to how they're going to align this infield, because obviously Josh Donaldson is the elephant in the room, really, regarding third base. And so is Gleyber Torres. Like, are they going to re-sign? Are they going to extend Gleyber Torres? What do you think?
I would say I want to say no almost, unless they move Peraza. But like, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Gleyber's having a decent year. He's getting the job done. The problem is if you take him out of the lineup, you're taking out one of your better hitters. So that's an issue too. And they've had struggles in the postseason hitting. So I don't know if that's the right way to do it. It's tough to not have Peraza play. So I understand like both sides of the argument here. I think Donaldson's an afterthought. I'm not going to believe he's back until he's actually back. Like he might just be I mean, our friend David Ripken said he might be getting the Ellsbury treatment. I'm sure you guys call into that.
I did catch wind of that. Do you think that's true?
I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, because like, where's the role for Donaldson and how this team looks right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't see them inserting Donaldson, and not so much the defense. The defense, I think, is what it is. It's good enough to survive, I think, but inserting his bat into the lineup can really cause a ripple effect and just throw the balance off. So I can see the Ellsbury treatment being the way that the Yankees have to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with that.
Another player that's been called up is Cabrera. You know, where are we seeing? You know, how's his development been, and what have you seen from him that you're not seeing now?
I'm going to say something that might surprise you guys. I kind of thought he could be in danger of being sent down when they first traded for Greg Allen. Like, I thought that was a possible string they could pull. I'm happy they did decide to DFA Hicks. It was the logical move, but Cabrera's got to get his back going. I mean, it's been a rough season for him offensively. You can see he's still trying to learn the outfield a little bit, which is okay, but the bat's been a little bit rough. I think he's just not making good contact, honestly. Like, the quality of contact just isn't really there from on a consistent basis. I'm not really sure what they're going to – I guess when Stanton comes back, he'll lose some playing time too, maybe. But and then they like Bowers now too, so it seems like he might start to lose some time unless he starts hitting.
Yeah, I don't see where he fits. Maybe third base, but then what do you do with LeMahieu? It's more – you know, everybody's saying that Torres should be the next guy. And if it's for the right trade, it would make sense. But the one thing I don't think gets mentioned enough with Gleyber Torres is his strikeout percentage is down this year significantly. I think he's only got a 12% strikeout rate, where, you know, the previous years it was, you know, up in, you know, into the 18, 19, 20%.
I like what I've seen from Torres this year. I think he has his typical hot and cold stretches, but the strikeouts being cut is a big thing, especially with TJ's strikeouts are going up. It's like they've traded places. It's like a weird thing. Like, it's almost like they swapped, but it's good to see Torres is maintaining the balance because, like, we know how the strikeouts are an issue with the Yankees lineup. I think Torres could end up having an OPS around 800 on the year, which would be solid. Hit like 25 homers, maybe driving 80 runs, which would be a good year for him. And I think he's like showing that he is one of the better hitting second basemen in the league. His defense at second is pretty solid. So I just don't know if the Yankees want to commit long-term dollars to him when they have Peraza, who's going to be making pennies, and then you're going to want to allocate some other things too. They're still stuck paying Hicks, despite the fact he's going to be DFA'd. So there's a lot of things in play.
Is
Yeah,
is Peraza a trade candidate? Do you think? Do you think there's more
Yeah.
likelihood of him being a trade candidate than him being the second baseman in the future?
The problem is the Yankees are doing what they classically do and ruining the prospect's value
Yep.
because they're keeping him in AAA, not in the majors, which is not going to help because we know he can play in AAA already. He's doing amazing in AAA. He doesn't need to be in AAA. It's just an awkward situation that's been created by the logjam of infielders on the roster. It's just something that it's tough to do. When you talk about the rotations, like could you try to carve out a Cabrera role for Peraza where he rotates between third and second and like maybe short on occasion to spell Volpe? I don't think they would put him in the outfield because he's too good of an infielder, but I don't know. It's a bunch of tricky stuff. It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, the way I would assess this is like I don't think they ever had a plan for Peraza. They didn't even have a plan for him last year. Even when they did call him up, remember Aaron Boone was like, "Oh, we'll see. It's fluid. We'll take it on a day-by-day basis. He'll back up IKF." And I'm thinking, well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. He's better than IKF. I mean, there's not even a question about it. Like, he's a better shortstop than IKF. Why is he back up to IKF? And now IKF isn't even the shortstop. He's playing backup center field, backup left field, and there's still no Peraza. So it's like their plans are their plan is fluid, but it doesn't make any sense. But it's just kind of fly by the seat of the pants.
Maybe they assumed that Peraza would win the job by the spring training and they would bring up Volpe later and figure it out. I thought maybe that's what they felt would happen. But that's not what ends up happening. And now Peraza's in the awkward position. If they trade him, I mean, like Bobby said before, you need to get something good. Like if you want to trade Gleyber Torres, like you got to get something worth the return. Torres' value is way lower than Peraza's, obviously, because he has like a year and a half left in his deal.
Right.
So Peraza could get you something decent, I think, but then you have to lock in Torres if you're going to do that. So they could do that. Could they get an outfielder, another pitcher arm or something? I mean, it's going to be a fascinating deadline.
How would you assess Gleyber Torres, Julian, this year? How would you assess him?
I think he's been pretty good. I can't say he's been great. He hasn't been bad by any means. He got off to a hot start. He's cooled off of late. But like you said, the strikeout rate being down is really good for him. And he is like one of the better second basemen in the league, which is important, obviously. I mean, the WAR on Baseball Reference is only 0.4, so it's not off the charts by any means, but it's not terrible. I think he still has room to improve for sure. And I think like when Stanton comes back, it'll probably help a little bit, extend the lineup, give everyone some more protection as well. Judge was down too, so like they were focusing on Torres more, so maybe that could be part of it also. But will we ever see the team fully whole? That's the biggest question we all have, I think.
Yeah, there are a couple of the names that have been coming up, and Mazza points out because TC and Hector, their boy Chaparro. What can we expect from Chaparro, if anything, if he gets called up this year, and where would you see him? Where would you see him fitting in?
I love Chaparro's bat. I really do. The guy's a great player. The problem is his positional fit is awkward. I think he's another one that you could see with a major league bat right now, just like Austin Wells. I thought they should have maybe tried to bring him up when Stanton went down. You could have let him DH. The team was starving for offense at that point.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to make the decision then, unfortunately. So now I don't know when it's really going to happen. I mean, you could try to play him at first a little bit, but the problem is you have Rizzo there. And then third base, I don't know if he's major league ready for third, unfortunately. That would be the easiest way to slide him in, but it seems like he's not major league caliber, unfortunately. I know he's trying to improve on his defense, and he has made some good plays out there, and he's told me he's working on it and everything. But I think it's tough I don't know what they're going to do with him either, really. Another guy that's kind of stuck right now.
Yeah. What about Elijah Dunham is another name that the chat has brought up.
I like Dunham, too. I thought he could have been in play before the Greg Allen trade, maybe, or when you were going through all those outfield issues. But now, again, I mean, he's been playing good defense down there. The bat has to come around a little bit for Dunham. I know what he's capable of after watching him in Double-A last year. He also could steal a lot of bases. But I think his OPS is like under 700 right now in Triple-A, so he's going to have to get going a little bit offensively. And maybe if there's another injury or something, you could see him late in the year. Or maybe he's a piece that gets moved in a deal or something.
There are a lot of. It seems like the Yankees have a lot of guys that could make the team at some point, but it just feels like there's log jams, even in terms of our prospect, because a bunch of outfielders, not enough spots for them.
Yeah.
Even with some of the arms, like a lot of our guys aren't necessarily ready yet, and I don't know it. Like, I know a trade is going to happen at some point because every year the Yankees do this, where it's like we have so many prospects that we want to see,
Yeah.
and there's Rule 5 players potentially. I think that's going to end up being the route, and I think Pereira and Wells could fall into that category, especially if Rortvedt does. We talked about this yesterday on the show. If Rortvedt were to have some sort of hot streak and they go with him and Trevino as the platoon behind the plate, where does that leave Austin Wells? Could they move him? The thing is that player available right now in a trade? Like, is there an outfielder out there that's not a rental that the Yankees would give up a Pereira or a Wells for in a trade? I don't know if that player exists right now.
Yeah, that's a problem. I agree with you. I'm not sure if there is anyone that fits that category because these guys the rentals aren't worth those guys. I feel like they're more inclined to keep Austin Wells because I think the catching future is a little more uncertain. Like, is Trevino going to legitimately be here for a while? Like, I don't know about that. Like, we still need to see what Rortvedt is. We know Higgy's a backup. I think Pereira could end up being gone because we have too many outfielders. I think the Yankees like Wells. I think they've hung on to him for a reason, and I think he'll end up surviving, but you never know.
Let's do a quick roll call. Shout out to Miguel.
I gotta get my charger quick.
Gleyber for Bellinger straight up, my guy. Sunil, good morning, gentlemen, listening on my drive to work. Thank you so much, Sunil. Hope you have a good day at work, my guy. My guy Maza, Fortune Express, Facts Donald, even though they said that the plan was to have Peraza and Volpe as the middle infield tandem of the future, they never had a set plan, which contradicts their statement of having a plan, which is absolutely spot on. Great point.
True.
That's 100% true. Spencer, good to see you, my guy. And FJ, good to see you too. So everybody, if you're not already done so, if you could hit the like button, that would be really, really cool. And yeah, thanks so much for Julian for joining us.
Yeah. So, how are you seeing the Yankees overall this year? Obviously, on the major league level, with the tightness of the division and the new schedule, the balanced schedule, where there's less games to catch in the division. How do you see the Yankees from this point going forward? Where do you see them down the line?
I think they're in a good spot considering all the injuries, honestly. I mean, they're only 5.5 out after everything that's happened. They have a big series with Baltimore starting today. See if they can make some ground there. I think they're going to be a playoff team, obviously. I'm never going to say that, but I don't know if they're going to fully win the division. I mean, they're right there. I mean, they got a shot still. But like you said, the thing that makes it harder is just less games against your division opponents now. So you have to make an impact when you play them, and they did all right. Considering the injuries against Tampa, they held the ground, basically. So I will see how it all ends up going, but I can't say I'm not happy with how they've performed because of all the injuries that have taken place. The offense has been rough to watch at times, but it looks like that's looking a lot better now. Losing Hamilton kind of sucks because he was starting to really make a name for himself in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were talking about this yesterday. We were talking about this before the month even started, how the month of May was basically the season because of how bad April was. And even though we know the injuries are the biggest reason this team was playing bad, but they almost played themselves out of a shot at the playoffs. Maybe not even the playoffs, but definitely the division. Yeah. But now that we've gotten healthy and we've had a tough schedule, but we're 14-6, the offense is coming around and we're not even fully loaded yet. We just got Severino back. We're going to get Canely back in the next maybe like 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know the exact timetable, but Stanton's coming back maybe sooner than later. And things are looking up. And do you agree with that? That the month of May was basically the month that they had to be good in, or this season would have been a lost cause?
I won't say fully lost cause, but I understand what you're saying. Because it could have been lost for his division, sure. With the expansive playoffs, you always got a shot at a wild card, basically, which I know the Yankees don't want wild cards and we don't want wild cards, but I think it was a big month for sure. It was kind of put up or shut up in a sense. And they put up so far, and we'll see how they end it because it's not an easy ending. Baltimore and then San Diego, I know, has been struggling, but there's a lot of talent on that team, even if Machado's not playing. So those are going to be two interesting series to see where they stand at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think it's, the balanced schedule is going to, I think it is going to balance out this, the competition, because you're going to have, the lesser teams from the other divisions to kind of beat up on, but you're still going to have a lot of the competitive playoff teams that we know are going to be in, that might give you a little bit of a fight. I think what I've seen so far from May is this team is kind of, rallied with each other, despite of who's been, hurt, who's producing, despite, the manager making some questionable moves, the GM not really having backup plans for the backup plans that don't work out. So I think that's the reason why the Yankees have survived this month and have looked so much better. They actually they're finishing the month looking like one of the more dominant teams in baseball.
Yeah, well, it's been a good stretch, even with the injuries, like we said, and they're starting to do what we know they can do with the bats too. Aaron Judge has been the key, obviously. As soon as he comes back, the offense explodes again. Bader's been great too. So getting the lineup fully healthy was the key for that. And the pitching, I mean, the starting's been a little bit spotty. The bullpen's kind of held it up. Garrett Cole's been a beast too. So they have a lot of guys performing well and filling in key roles.
Question, Julian. Do we thank the Blue Jays for poking the bear?
The Blue Jays look like they can't even get out of their own way now either. So that's another issue for them. But maybe the Jays did poke the bear a little bit. They got Aaron Judge woken up, obviously, even though he was hitting well before that too. But it looks like he's found his MVP level from last year.
You look at the last 8 games, he's got 16 RBIs, 14 hits, and 7 home runs. His batting average is shot up like 60 points, and he's like 1,042 OPS, and that's span. Absolutely insane. He's already somehow on pace to match what he did last year, despite missing the 10 games through injury and the day off. I mean, that's just amazing. We are privileged to have him on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's sick. I mean, just the fact to have him in there and just how he extends them and everything, and just what he's been doing for the team on his defense too. He just sets the tone, and if he can get another 50 plus this year, that'll be big too.
Yeah, we do have a couple more interesting comments that popped in. We had FJ here. I don't think it's too far-fetched to consider moving Trevino for Wells and a Roydvet catching tandem. I wouldn't move on Trevino because I don't think you trade a platinum glove, for unless you're getting like some guaranteed postseason superstar.
Wells could replace Higashioka. That's not crazy because Higashioka's defense hasn't been great, and offensively he's mediocre. So there's possibly a spot there.
I just don't know if they'd want to have Wells come up and be a backup. That's the other thing you got to think about too. And could you do I think if they were going to move for Trevino, that's an off-season thing. That's not going to happen during the season. Maybe it could happen. That would make some sense potentially.
And Sunil, what do we make of Domingo Germán? His carelessness in particular. What was your take on Germán?
I was out there the first game where he got accused, and he was pitching like a perfect game against the Twins or whatever. And I was like, okay, I mean, he's doing really well. I mean, that was like his first good start too. So I was like, maybe there is something going on here, but we didn't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you see what happens last week. It's just like you can't put them in that position when they have all these injuries with their pitchers and everything, and you're already battling down to your last starters, basically. Just not advised. I don't know what the full situation is. Pine tar, sticky stuff. I mean, he's doing something that looks like. I mean, he had a really good stretch. Was he cheating the whole time? I mean, I hope not, but who knows? The numbers, they get better. But who knows what's going to end up happening with him either. I mean, I think he'll come back and he's going to be a piece in this rotation for a while, I think, for this year at least. But because Rodon, we don't know when he's coming. And then when Rodon comes back, Schmidt probably goes to the bullpen anyway.
What about Clark Schmidt? Because going into the season, I know Donald is really big on Clark Schmidt. I loved him in the bullpen last year, but I really wanted to see him make it as a starter. And it just seems like this year with that cutter, he can't get lefties out to save his life. And I know that his last start against Cincinnati was good, but their lineup is loaded with righties, so it kind of benefited him. Is his role in the bullpen is that going to be it for him, or do you see that there's maybe a shot that he could do something differently to make it as a starter again, or is he just going to be one of those guys that goes from failed starter to just good bullpen piece?
This is tough. I want to see him be a good starting pitcher too. I really do. I think that it could have been big for us. I know he's wanted to start for a while. He didn't really want to be independent as much, but he was willing to do whatever it took to get to the big league roster. He's supposed to be a starting pitcher, but I'm not sure. They're giving him a lot of leash. He's getting a long leash here, and if it wasn't for the injuries, he would not be getting this much run. So they're giving him every opportunity to try to straighten it out. And you've seen flashes of stuff that's good, but it hasn't been consistent enough to make you think he can permanently be in a rotation yet. I mean, he's running out of time too because, well, maybe not because Rodon might take a while, but he's got to get it together quickly, though, just to show that he can be at least serviceable starting pitcher. Let's get to that point and then go from there. I mean, the problem against the lefties is critical, though. We've seen that be a struggle. The cutter has to get better or he has to ditch it, one of the two. So let's see. And he's got a long way to go.
For me, the problem with him is his only plus pitch is really his curveball. I think that's the one swing and miss pitch that he's got. He doesn't have a great fastball. It's pretty average, and the cutter isn't working for him at all. And that's I think the big thing for him is a put-away pitch. I mean, obviously, if he's only got one plus pitch, which is his curveball, I mean, people are going to sit on that cutter. They're going to sit on that cutter. They're going to sit on that fastball. And the thing is, like, he also sometimes, if he falls behind batters, then he's kind of screwed because they're going to be sitting on that fastball.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. His control's been a problem this year, too. He's walked some guys that have led to some bad situations as well. He just doesn't seem to have the full confidence when he's throwing, maybe. Like, it seems like his pitch sequencing is a little bit off sometimes, too. But, I mean, he's been better recently. We'll see if he can string together some good starts. He's going to have a tough stretch coming up with these teams playing. I think he's getting the ball against Baltimore. I would assume so. I think, does he get it Wednesday after Garrett Cole? I don't know the exact schedule, but he hasn't pitched in a little bit. I know he pitched against the Reds from the what day, but let me try to look really quick.
I think he's after Nestor. I think it's Cole, Nestor, Schmidt.
Okay, that makes sense. But
which would give Severino the first start against San Diego.
Yeah, okay, so he will start against Baltimore most likely. I think that holds true. So that's going to be a big test too. They got some good lefties in that lineup. If you can do good against them, I think that'd be a big step forward.
Yeah, I think if we take 2 out of 3 in Baltimore against Baltimore, I think that'd be a plus for us. With Schmidt, do you think it could be a combination of the pitch clock and the also a factor of an inconsistent bullpen? You know, do you think that starting pitchers that are still trying to figure out who they are as a pitcher, do you think that these, that kind of inconsistency and not having to rush through an at bat, do you think that could be why we're not seeing Schmidt develop as fast as we thought we would?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. I didn't think of the pitch clock playing the presence here. He probably needs more time to figure things out. Because I said he doesn't have conviction sometimes when he's throwing. It seems like, but I'm not sure how much the pitch clock is playing in. I mean, I know some people think it's causing Nestor issues because he can't have his
decisive. That's my question.
Yeah. Oh, I think it could maybe there is a factor there. Maybe the juggling back and forth from bullpen to starter has been been hurting him a little bit too. Like we know what happened with Chamberlain. So I mean, but they gave him the chance to fully start during the spring because the injuries hit pretty early, and he's fully stretched out. Obviously, maybe this pitch clock is hurting a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is affecting Nestor because of that herky-jerky motions that have been kind of cut, and that kept batters off balance, in my opinion. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the pitch clock with him, but I also see that once again, similar to Clark Schmidt, they're kind of sitting on Nestor's cutters as well.
I think they figured.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think they figured Nestor out a little bit. He needs to retool. I think he's not catching people by surprise anymore. And the problem is he doesn't have the velo either. So, like, if they know what's coming, they're going to kill it. If his location and his command's been off, too. Like, he's walked more batters than we're used to seeing him walk this year, which is a problem because he can't really get himself into these jams with the stuff he has because it's tougher to pitch out of it because he doesn't have, like, that strikeout stuff per se. So if he puts people on, there's a good chance they might end up scoring unless he gets a ground ball.
I think it'll clean up as the season goes on. I think that it's he's too experienced to just completely fall off and just have this much trouble, over a long period of time.
Yeah, I saw someone ask about Clayton B there. Did you guys get to that? Did I miss it?
No, I don't think you brought that up.
Okay, let me try to find. Oh, someone asked me how long before we see him. There we go. I want to answer this one. He's having a good year, I think. He's behind Warren, obviously. I don't know if we'll see him in the majors this year, but I think he could get a call to AAA maybe in the next month or so. I just know it's his first year being fully stretched out as a starter, I think, or at least last year he was doing like some bullpen opening for the Dodgers minor league system. He added some pitches in the offseason, so he's definitely. I think he added a changeup. Actually, I think that's what Beater added. So there's some talk that Beater could end up being a bullpen arm long term, but I think he can end up starting because he has like 2 really good pitches. But he's been really good. It's been a good surprise for the Joey Gallo trade.
Uncle Tats, what was your dog's question for Julian?
Oh my God, he's driving me crazy. There's 2 squirrels running back and forth on the fence, driving the dog crazy. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose. But I think that when you're looking at the overall aspect with these minor leaguers, do you feel like there's more of an upside that they're going to have like a positive impact on the Yankees, while at the same time having some ammunition to make some trades that actually might work this time?
I think it's a mixed bag. I see some guys that are going to be up with this team in the next year or so, and then I see guys that fit better on other teams that can end up helping us net a return that hopefully turns out better than what we got last year. But I look more forward to seeing the guys actually play as to what they could do for us, opposed to what they could get for us. Because I like to see them fully go through. Like, it's cool to say, like, I saw them in Double-A and they make it to the majors. It hurts a little bit to see the guys get traded sometimes, but if it's the right deal, it makes sense. Like, I know Waldichuk struggled, but losing him for Montas was terrible last year. Obviously, that turned out horribly. The other guys, Medina and Sears, aren't as tough to lose, but it's still bad considering everything that's happened with Montas. And then Lou Trevino gets Tommy John, too. Like, it's just what a disaster that it turns out to be.
Yeah, you almost couldn't even, like, predict that. Like, I thought it was a great deadline, and I'm not going to change my opinion, but when you look at how it turned out, like, every single person that we ended up getting got hurt. You feel like
what were the chances?
Right. I mean, I get, like, Montas was hurt, and that's something that Cashman finally held himself accountable for. He's like, I made a bad trade, I made a bad decision. But the fact that Trevino was great for us last year, ended up getting hurt. Ross was really good, got hurt. Benintendi, when they finally used him right, ends up getting hurt. It's just like, how many times are we going to go through this? And even Harrison Bader, who played well for us in the playoffs, got hurt in the spring, and thank God he's back. It's just How does that happen?
And
You're
then
like,
you
where's the
sign,
voodoo doll?
and then you sign Kaylee and Rozoa, they both get hurt. Like,
Right.
what the hell?
So maybe the black cloud that was over the Yankees was Aaron Hicks. I don't know. Maybe he had the voodoo doll. That's been my theory for a while, and now that they eradicated that, I don't know. But
Another
it's
mistake
so
they
sneaky.
made it too. Yeah, but like it's just I don't know. It doesn't make any sense how all this stuff keeps happening. Like, what's going on with all this? Like, how does everyone just get injured? Like, it's not. I mean, some of them have injury history. Okay.
Well, that's it, man. That's it. I don't think it takes Sherlock Holmes to figure it out. Brian Cashman loves his injured dudes. Tommy Canley's coming off an injury. Bring him in, right? Bader make a massive trade for Montas, and he was hurt when we actually made that trade. It's dudes with injury history. That's why it's happened. It's not really a massive surprise, and the Yankees love to exacerbate injuries. I don't know what's going on with like the way they look after their players, but there's definitely an issue in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like they changed the whole training staff too, and they bring in Cressy, and things were looking better for a bit, but now we're right back in this bad spiral of the 2019 next man up mantra again. Like with all this, and 21 was bad too. But it's crazy. It really is. I mean, Efros was relatively young. I don't think he had any history. Trevino seemed to be healthy, just ineffective, and then Benny had like one, I think, or two small issues like beforehand with Boston. But yeah, it's just a mess. Hopefully this deadline they get guys that actually stay on their feet.
It's just unreal. The injuries just over and over, and it's the mostly it's the same suspects every year. We know they're going to go down. You would think that Cashman would have kind of I know I'm going to lose this level of a bat. Let me at least get a significant backup. And he was just kind of we knew Stanton was going to go down, right?
Yeah,
that's inevitable
every year.
And his the replacement for him in the lineup was Cordero, who had that hot streak, but then just leveled off. So he's Cashman's not good at planning ahead. I think that's his biggest problem.
Yeah, like you feel like he's gotten worse at building depth and not better, which is a problem. I mean, we have guys that could step in. Like he could have tried to give Chaparro some at bats, might have been better than Cordero or Calhoun. But he didn't want to do it yet. We'll see if he gets his shot. He's definitely earned a shot to hit up here. There's no question. We'll see. But what's up, fellas? I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out.
How would you assess Aaron Boone's job performance to this point?
He frustrates me. But,
join the club.
That's everybody.
Honestly, like I don't understand Tasik would say with the bullpen sometimes, like the orders and the lanes and how he wants to use certain pitchers. Like we've had all these different guys get saves, which I guess is okay in retrospect, but like it's just some decisions have been costly. I don't some of the lineup juggling without consistency too, like a lot of rotations in there. The left field, this situation's been an absolute nightmare. So I'm just like throwing a random guy in there every day and hoping for the best, which is it goes back to what Bobby said about not preparing properly for the season because we knew left field is the biggest roster hole on this team. And the guy who you could maybe say is the best is Stanton, but the injury history is there and the questions of playing the field. So you knew it was going to be a problem.
Yeah, I have trouble blaming too much on Boone purely because the roster construction we knew it from day one was a complete mess. Like, double down on it.
That is
made
true.
no sense.
I'm not upset with the record by any means.
Yeah,
happens. Like I will say that much.
Yeah, if you look at the record, it's actually pretty good considering the fact that they basically play any random dude playing a left field right now, including Higashioka. Higashioka's or IKF. They're playing everybody.
Maybe like I missed that game.
Oh, that's coming. Don't worry, that's coming. But then you look at his roster, his bullpen decisions, and they're absolutely mind blowing. There's zero reason to some of the reasons.
The situation, bringing him in like with the bases loaded, it was terrible. Like, what are you doing there? Like, that's the one that jumps out at me recently. There's been a few other ones too, but I'll just stick to that one because
I think Boone's win above replacement is like minus at this point, -3 or -4 at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
But we could have at least another 4-5 wins if not for some of these bullpen decisions. We could have taken both series against Tampa Bay, and I still don't know how Albert Abreu has a spot in this bullpen. I feel like there's anybody that could step up in that role, and I'm hoping that when Canely does get activated, he's the one to go. But I feel like it's going to be Nick Ramirez. But there is another player. I know he's not
too.
Right, and I like what Weber's been able to do, and I don't want to see him go. But if they just have this, they're just Web Dog. They're married to Abreu, but there's another player that's not really a prospect, but Matt Crook has been getting used in kind of like a relief role in the minors. I want to know, do you think they'd call him up potentially right before that Domingo Germán suspension ends? Because they're going to need a fresh arm at some point.
Yeah,
until they get
Crook
him back.
on this. I want Matt Crook on this roster. I want him on the roster in spring training. I'm not sure. I mean, I know he got banged up, so maybe that's playing a part of it. I think his walks were a little bit higher early on, but I think he's better than Nick Ramirez, honestly. I think he should be up here. I think he should get up soon. Hopefully it happens in the next week or so. I don't know if it will for sure, but I feel like he's got to be the next man up down there because they've gone everyone else. I think he's earned his shot. He's showed he can pitch in AAA. He's striking out guys out in spring training. He can provide a different element as a good lefty behind Peralta. I'd like to see him stick. I think it could happen.
Now, is there a name or a player that you've watched in the minor leagues that is not in the discussions a lot?
I'm trying to think. I feel like Trey Sweeney's getting under the ropes a little bit, but the problem is he doesn't have a position. So that's because he's short right now. I like Sean Boyle, even though he's gotten off to a rough start in AAA as a starting option. I thought they could have looked to him in a certain situation when Schmidt was struggling, maybe. I think Mitch Spence is the one we're talking about. And I like Randy Vasquez, too, from a pitching standpoint.
I like Vasquez, too. I just don't know if he's necessarily ready yet. But
yeah,
then again,
it might not be this year.
We've been dipping so much into our depth that Germán, Schmidt, and Brito were our depth, and we've already had to dip into that because of 3 injuries to the rotation. So, I mean, I don't know who's next, but I do think that Matt Crook, even though he's not a starter, he should be on this team because he's a guy that can give you a couple of innings, and you can use that right now because I don't know what they're going to do in the San Diego series, or maybe even this series. Do you think they can possibly use that opener again? Because we know Baltimore's got those lefties. Do they try to go with Cordero to start again, and maybe they have Schmidt come out of the bullpen for that game?
I'm trying to think because we did get an off day, so could they set it up in a way that everyone can still start before Domingo gets back? I'm trying to think how it could go. So we're going to do Cole, we're going to do Clark, and we're going to do Cortez probably, and then I think it's Cole, Cortez, and then Clark maybe. But
yeah.
And then the 4th spot, you would have to put. I'm trying to think Sevy would be back.
Sevy would be in, yeah.
Sevy will be there Thursday, and then Friday. Yeah, I think it might be an issue still. It seems like it could still be a problem potentially. So they might have to do an opener Friday or something because you can't.
Well, they love their opener, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
I
think my biggest complaint right now, and it's not necessarily the roster, it's just that the way that they plan for future games and plan for future series and kind of ignore the game that they're playing right now. Like they're always just kind of like, oh, we're going to rest these bunch of elite relievers for a future game down the line. They've been doing it for years, and they do it including the playoffs, where it's like, oh, it's like they've got infinite amount of time. And they're constantly managing as if they're in the regular season, including October. Like remember, game 1 of the ALCS, they kind of put out a punt lineup and a punt pitching tandem, and it was like they were planning ahead for future games that you're not guaranteed to have. And I think that's their biggest problem, man. Like if they just kind of focused on the game that they have and tried to win each game and just keep that momentum going, I think you'd find that they'd actually be more successful than they've actually been over the last few years. What would you say to that contention, Julian? You're yourself, my guy.
Okay, am I good now?
Yeah.
All right, sorry about that. So I think part of the issue is, like you said, I think it's like the lanes that they try to create. Like, oh, I'm going to use this guy here. Like, yes, this is the perfect situation for this pitcher. Like, forget everything else. Like, this guy's got to throw right now so I can save this guy for later. And I'll have this person tomorrow. Like, it's kind of maddening when you think about it. How much planning goes into, like, different games and are the ones that are actually, like, being played. And you saw the issues in the postseason with, like, not using Clay Holmes and having Clark Schmidt close against the Guardians, which was embarrassing. That was not going to end well. And then you have using him in Houston in a 1-1 game. It's a little bit questionable too. But it's just, and then you had the situation with the rainouts and, like, I think no off days or whatever took place. But, like, it's, yeah.
It was the roof's fault, so.
Blame the roof, blame the sun, blame the noise. They blamed everything but the play of the team, basically, during that postseason. Or at least that series against Houston. They blamed everything but the team's performance.
Unbelievable.
I mean, at least if they held themselves accountable, it would have, it still would have pissed us off, but at least it would have lasted, the aggravation would have lasted a little, would have been shorter.
Yeah, I'll say.
Let's do a quick roll call. TC Steels, good to see you. And MH, looks like MH has got some question for Tats. Look out. The kids are taking over your channel, Tats. And he's also my agent. Did Donald get his raise yet, Tats? Elite Analysis. Thank you. I love your support, my guy. Thank you so much.
MH, we always appreciate you. TC, everybody. Before we wrap it up, Julian, let everybody know where they can find you on social media and the Dugout Station podcast.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. You can check out my handle right here. It's Julian Guilarte 1 on Twitter. Instagram's Julian Guilarte 11. Everyone's sub to the podcast, Dugout Station, YouTube, Facebook, Insta, Twitter, even TikTok. So that's where you can find all our stuff. We're doing some reporting, highlights, and some writing here and there. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. And hopefully the Yankees have a good series against Baltimore.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a tight series. But I think the Yankees have the offense in the right direction to manage it. But we do appreciate you coming on. We'll like to have you on later on, maybe closer to the trade deadline. I think that'd be a fun discussion of who's on the market, who's on the move, what you're hearing, in the background.
Okay, we could definitely do that. Yeah. Thanks for having me again. It was a fun little discussion, and at least we're playing better now, so we have better things to talk about.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
It's always better to laugh than cry, right?
Yeah, I'll say.
We do appreciate everybody in the chat for all your comments, your questions. Always, always appreciated. Make sure you subscribe, share this out. And as always, wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.